How we doing? I hope everybody's having a great day. Excited to be talking about football this time of year. Obviously, very appreciative to our staff, our players, our medical staff, our coaches, coordinating in a unique time. Coach Smart talks about it all the time, having mental agility. Right now is kind of the new phrase in our program. And our guys have handled adjustment extremely well and really attacked everything that we're trying to get accomplished in our program.
Okay, let's go to the questions. Maybe let's take the first one from Anthony Dasher. Dash, don't see you. Let's go to Mark Weiser. Unmute. Unmute. Mark, unmute.
Get with me.
All right. I thought I was unmuted, but now can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Dan. Want to ask you, I guess, starting your third season with the program here, do you feel like you're kind of putting down some roots in the community and, with Georgia football?
Sorry, I missed that last part there, Mark.
I was asking, this is your third season with the program, and as you climb the career ladder, you obviously probably moved around a little bit more. Do you feel like you're putting down some roots in the program and in the community?
Yeah, absolutely. And really excited to be. You always talk about being in a place. I've got 3 kids, my wife Sophia and I, and you talk about being in a place you'd love to raise your family. And Athens has truly been that place. 3 years for me in college football, this will be the longest I've been anywhere. And sometimes it takes that progression to get, there in your career. And I'm very fortunate to be in a place where I can see myself for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to also ask, what areas in particular are you looking to attack, this preseason? Obviously, the defense put up some good numbers last year, but coach is always looking for more. What are you looking at in particular?
The biggest thing I think we've emphasized so far this offseason is the finish. We've talked about havoc plays a lot on here in the past, and that's still definitely a big focus for us. But we want to get the ball out. We want to finish. We want to impact the game by having some game-changing plays that we can create, and our players have really embraced that so far.
All right, let's go to Mike Griffith.
Yeah, Coach, I know there's obviously been a lot of attention paid. Statistically, your team finished really well last season, and you played, I don't know what it was, 30 guys, over 100 snaps, something ridiculous like that. So I guess the question we're all asking is how do you guys get better? I mean, is there more to add to the toolbox? How do you improve on those numbers and those performances other than what you just said is about finishing?
Ultimately, for us, it's about wins, but that was 2019. This is 2020. It really has no correlation. We have to start from scratch. By no means are we the 85 Bears. We got a lot of work to do, but our guys are embracing the challenge of getting better and focusing on that. It starts with the details, right? It starts with today, not tomorrow, not the first game. We got to really focus on today first.
Seth Emerson. Seth, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, go.
All right, sorry. Dan, first off, Kevin Butler will be happy to hear you say that about not being the 85 Bears. When you say finish and that being the goal, is that part of Havoc Rate? Is that as an extension of Havoc Rate as the emphasis last year?
Yeah, it's really a combination of everything. I think, football is such a unique sport in a standpoint that you could win 90% of the play, and if the last 10% of the play, the wide receiver catches the ball, you didn't do your job. If you don't get to the quarterback, you might have a great pass rush move, but you don't finish on the quarterback, it doesn't matter. If you cover somebody perfectly or fit a gap perfectly, but you don't make the tackle or get the ball out, it doesn't matter. So the key to us is we're finishing 100% of the play. And even if we're behind in the first 80%, how we finish that play can really be a key to success.
Did your all's analysis in the offseason kind of pinpoint that as something that was a little bit of a weak link last year?
Well, I don't know about weak link, but I think something that Coach Smart's done for a very long time and we've done for a very long time is to go back and say, what can we do better? And that's something I think we all wanted to focus on, when we do our self-scout and analyze ourselves.
Dane Legge.
Hey, Dan, I wanted to ask you what you think Kirby's learned from you in the time that y'all have been together.
I have no clue. I've learned a lot from Coach Smart. I know we have a lot of fun on our side of the ball. I love coaching with the guys that we coach with. I know Coach Smart really enjoys coaching with our staff and our players. This is a really fun group of players to coach. So I think we have a great time. We work really hard and push our guys to excel, but I've learned a whole lot more from Coach Smart than he's learned from me. I can promise you that.
Jake Rowe.
Yeah, Coach. Obviously, not asking you to divulge state secrets or anything here, but just wanted to kind of get your impressions on defending, Todd Monken's offense. I know it's only been 3 practice, but just kind of what he brings to the table as an offensive coordinator and what kind of challenges you've seen that he can kind of, create for a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I think that's unique about Todd, I'm not going to tell you what plays we're running, right? But what's really fun is he's the definition of a coach that's, he has obviously a lot of experience, knows exactly what he wants in his product. Is very demanding of his guys and what right execution looks like. But he's also very adaptable to change. The game's changed over the years, and I think you see a lot of pieces of that in his offensive game plan.
Good. William Newland.
Hey, Coach. Coach Smart told us that he's kind of using like a peer intervention method to try and kind of keep everyone on track with social distancing, mask wearing. What have you said to the older guys, kind of in line with that, and what have you seen from the dynamic on the team in that regard?
I think there's a realization with our guys and what's required for us to be able to play like we want to play this year, and our guys have really bought into that. Every meeting, we're giving reminders. We're being very diligent and transparent as a program, and the safety precautions we're taking for our guys, and they've embraced that because ultimately we all have the same goal in what we want to achieve.
Has it been at all of a learning curve of getting everyone on the same page about this over the summer?
I think our guys have taken it very serious from the beginning. I think a lot of credit goes to Ron Corson and our medical staff, really educating our guys from day one. So I think everybody's taking it serious and they're trying to fall in line. Our strength staff's done a great job of protecting our guys. So, I think our guys have done a good job there.
Jason Butt, you have a question?
Yes, Coach Lanning. When it comes to the secondary, losing Wilson, transfer, and Ringo to the injury, are you guys having to do a lot more cross training there in the back end as a result of those 2 losses?
Ultimately, the way we practice gets a lot of guys a lot of opportunities. We get a ton of reps for our guys in practice, so I think those opportunities have already really been created through the way we structured it. We've always had, whether it be 2-spot drills, how we're practicing with our players, a lot of guys are getting a lot of reps. So it's definitely challenged our guys, but we've handled it really well.
Yeah, and 2 guys in particular, Tyreek Stevenson, is he getting looks, more looks at the star position? And then Eric Stokes, his development over the last couple of years, and what can you say about him in that regard?
Yeah, ultimately, I think Eric and Tyreek have both done a good job. Tyreek is not the only person that gets guys, as far as getting multiple positions. We work almost all of our guys. We cross-train in multiple positions for a lot of reasons because there is going to be change. Of all years, this is where that mental agility is going to come in. We have to be prepared to work several different spots.
Let's go to Brandon Sudge.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask you about Richard as well and his development over his entire career. I know, over the first couple of years, Kirby kept using the term rat trap, I guess, and describing how he plays. Has he kind of gotten past that, and what have you seen in his development here?
Yeah, I think, obviously Richard's a player that plays with instincts, and that shows up. And what he's learned over the years is to play with those same instincts within the framework of our defense and our system. And, I think every single one of our players still need to be coached. But Richard's production, a lot of it comes from those instincts. And he's done a good job of honing that in to fit within the system where he's able to make plays in every play he's supposed to make, right? And that's what we really focused on with him. He's done a good job of that.
David Pascal, do you have a question?
Hey, Dan, thanks for doing this. Kind of a big picture question. I know Georgia and Clemson, I think, ranked 1-2 in scoring defense last year, but LSU scored like 79 points combined against those defenses. They were obviously blessed with the first round quarterback, running back, receiver, but you always hear about college football being a copycat game. What about that LSU offense do you think people may try to copycat that you've got to move forward looking at this year?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big study piece for us this offseason. I think we're going to see more and more of that in our league. You know, the SEC has always been on the front end of development when it comes to the game. So I think there's a lot of pieces that will be carried over. We're going to see a lot of copycat plays, and we put a lot of focus on, you know, how we defend that the best moving forward.
Vance Levy, do you have a question?
Yeah, Coach, thanks for doing this. You know, I think obviously your leadership is pretty well known with all the guys that came back. Are there some particular younger guys that are showing, you know, the signs of leadership that you like to see as they are progressing to the day they will be the leaders?
You know, I think that, I mean, obviously it's just been 3 days of practice, you know, so to start there. But ultimately we have a really mature group of young guys that are eager. And I think the mental prep, while it was unique this year, the walkthroughs, the additional Zoom meetings, all of that created an opportunity for them to come in and be able to compete. So I wouldn't pick out a guy in particular. Beyond that, I think we have a really solid defensive group of young quality players that can come in and contribute.
Coach Jeff Schultz, you have a question?
Yeah, Dan. Thanks for doing this. I know in the NFL, since there's no preseason games, coaches have to adjust in terms of things like what they say to the media, in terms of who's playing in what spots, what they're going to do. Normally they'd be a little more open this time of year. I'm just curious, since you guys don't play any non-conference games, are there any adjustments that you have to make in any way in terms of personnel that you might normally use against a non-conference opponent? Scheme, strategy, development. I'm just curious if there's been any adjustment at all since you go straight into conference games.
Well, I mean, ultimately, that's what's unique and special about the SEC, obviously, is every week you're going to play a real team. That being said, you know, every game we go into, we prepare as if we have to utilize our best players. We have to have our best plan to execute regardless of the opponent. And I think that's one thing Coach Smart's always done a great job of. So it really doesn't matter who we play. The preparation required is the same. I think the one key is we all know is we're going to have to be ready quick, right? We got to get ready to go play this first game. And it starts, like I said, at the very beginning today with that focus. But yeah, we have a lot of adjustments we've made, you know, throughout the program this year, just because of the uniqueness of, you know, the pandemic and everything that takes place with that.
Zach Klein, I'm not sure where you are, but do you have a question?
Yeah, driving back from Costco, Coach. We talk once a year. I got to lock you in. A lot of alpha dogs in that defensive locker room, but who's the big dog? Who's the one guy that nobody else wants to get the MMA cage with?
That's a great question. I'm trying to think of who I don't want to fight on defense. I think I'd fight just about any of these guys. No, we got a good group. I mean, look, we have a bunch of dogs, you know, and I think a comment that was made last year several times was the no-name defense, and I think it was maybe taken a little bit the wrong way. In a lot of terms, when I say that, we have a lot of unselfish players, a lot of guys that want the ball in their hands at the end of the game. They want to be on the field on fourth down. There's a lot of guys on our defense I'd go to war with right now. I don't know if I'd pick one alpha dog, but we got a really good group of guys.
Chip Towers?
Let me unmute here. Yeah, Coach, talk a little bit, if you would, about Jordan Davis. He just seems like he's a guy that, as much as there's been excitement about him, I'm not sure that he's realized the tremendous potential everybody talks about when they talk about him. Obviously, it's a big year for him. What's his status right now, and what's your outlook for him this fall?
I have really high expectations for Jordan. You know, Jordan's worked really hard. Trey Scott does a phenomenal job, and Coach Williams do a great job with his development. But Jordan, I think, is really hungry. And there's just not a lot of people born in this world that look like Jordan Davis, right? So when you look like that, there's an expectation. And I expect him to really achieve at the highest level this year, have a phenomenal season to really help our team and our defense.
All right, let's take a few minutes and open up for anyone. Just remember to unmute when you ask your question. Hopefully we won't have too much overlap, but go ahead and fire away any questions that you might have.
Hey, Dan, I wanted to ask you, this is Dean Legge one more time. I wanted to ask you about Richard Lecount and coming into his final season at Georgia. What do you – I guess what's Richard's been like for these last few years? How has he grown?
Well, I think in the past you had a guy like J.R. Reed that Richard felt very comfortable in the back end with J.R. And now you look to the right and the left and J.R.'s not out there, and Richard's really embraced the opportunity to learn more, communicate more, be more vocal on the defense, and that's certainly what we're looking for from him this year.
Hey, Dan, this is Connor Riley. MJ Sherman was the only linebacker prospect you guys signed in the 2020 recruiting class. What was it that you saw him as a recruit that made him such a top target for you, and what do you sort of expect from him to bring to that outside linebacker room?
Yeah, he's, MJ's a tremendous person. He's got a great mindset. He's hungry, comes from a really good family, works really, really hard, and he's conscientious. All those things ultimately, and then, he's got strength, power, and agility that we think can be a real asset for him moving forward. So excited about his development and to see what he can do.
Coach, this is Roddy Nabolsi. Can you tell us a little bit about Jalen Carter and your initial thoughts on him? And if you would also touch on your three defensive linemen that you brought in from Tennessee last year, Bill Norton, Tymon Mitchell, those guys, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. The Tennessee crew, their development, it's always fun to see year one to year two. And when I give Coach Scott credit, he's done a good job with their development from the standpoint of the technique is a lot cleaner. We actually did a player development piece yesterday in our defensive meeting where we're kind of highlighting where guys have improved. We were able to show some film of Tymon early, right, in practice and how he was doing something wrong, something he fixed and adjusted, and then really a perfect rep in a team run setting. So it's fun seeing those guys come along. Jalen Carter has plenty to learn, but he's very strong. He's an explosive athlete. We definitely think he can make an impact for us. And it's good to see his technique continuing to get better day in and day out. He definitely makes the guys across the ball better.
Coach, Lewis Seen kind of got some valuable experience, or don't know how valuable it was, and that's kind of where I was going to go with this. Is starting those last two games last year. How much did that help him coming into this year and potentially being a much bigger player for you guys this year in terms of contribution?
Yeah, ultimately one of our goals on defense is to play the game as many times as we can before you actually play a game, whether that be through a walkthrough rep, a practice rep, whatever it is. And I think Lewis did a phenomenal job of taking all those reps leading into last year. And then when he hit the field, he was ready for his opportunity and did a great job with it. So I think you can't put a value on the game reps because that's completely different. But I think, Lewis is a guy that comes up and studies. He does extra, and I think that's paid off for him in creating opportunities for him moving forward.
Following up on the opening question in terms of how you feel comfortable at Georgia, how this is somewhere that you see yourself, do you remember a moment early on, it might have been, to where you felt comfortable in your role, felt comfortable around the coaching staff that you have?
I don't remember one particular moment. I just know that people coach their entire career dreaming to coach at a place like Georgia, and that was certainly the case for me. So getting the opportunity just to be here with the staff that we have and the players that we have is just really unique, and I certainly don't take that for granted.
And one more from me, Dean Legge. 3 kids during this thing. How's that been?
It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. With the amount of time that we were at home rather than on the road recruiting or some of the other things that you'll do within coaching has been really rewarding from a family standpoint. And my wife and kids, they make it work for me, and it's great getting to spend a lot of quality of time with them this summer. I know my wife was ready for school to start. Our boys are all back in school and excited for that. And they are not, just for what it's worth, they're not virtual learning this fall. She was ready to send them back, and we were ready to roll. So, but yeah, it's been great.
Dan, for you in particular, how was the pandemic as far as how much more studying did you do, whether it's other defenses? Looking back, did you watch more film of you guys last year? How was just this year unique for you and what you did personally as far as kind of film study?
Well, I'll say this. We figured out how to mute and unmute our Zooms a lot quicker than you guys. No offense. But we had the Zoom meetings. They never stopped. And it was a lot of fun as a staff to be able to connect with somebody that might be on the other side of the world, whether it be the San Diego Chargers or a high school coach in Florida. We spent a lot of time, and I think the key in all this is when you have more time, you want to make sure that you're careful not to do too much, because ultimately it still comes down to tackling, right? Block destruction, finishing on plays. So, but it was definitely very rewarding from a development standpoint as a staff for us to get with some other people.
Pete Golding said last night that from a mental standpoint, he felt like his players are ahead of where they've been the last couple of years. Is that kind of fair to say for you with along those same lines with all these Zoom meetings?
Yeah, ultimately I would agree with that. Our mental prep, that we've been able to create through either walkthrough Zoom meetings is actually further along probably than our physical prep as far as the technique that's required to execute something properly. Getting more of those practice reps is going to be really valuable. But the mental prep is definitely probably ahead of the curve.
Dan, I want to ask you about a couple second-year guys in Nolan Smith and Trayvon Walker. What in particular for each of them you're looking to see their game expand or get better?
I just want to see them maximize the opportunities they get on the field. Both of them are dynamic players. Both of them are very explosive and do a great job. I think they create issues for the offense with their suddenness. But probably more importantly, they finish. Right, those guys run to the ball. They finish twice. They work really hard on their craft. So just seeing them expand their role as they move forward. Excited to see what they do.
Coach, you mentioned earlier about copycat plays in LSU. How much of – I don't want to bring up too much of last year's game, but how much of that was scheme versus execution? And specifically, what are some of the principles or concepts that you think you're going to see more of from different teams this year?
Obviously they have phenomenal players, and you don't want to discredit, anything they did as a team last year. They did a really good job. I think there's elements of both. Ultimately we didn't finish on plays. We didn't, we were in the right place at times and didn't capitalize. On the same note, they had, they do a lot of unique things with empty. You see more empty in our league now than you ever have before. You see a lot of things from motion standpoint, shifts that they create, and it was unique to face. But moving forward, I don't know how much of that we'll see, but I know we'll be more prepared for it.
Dan, the term block destruction has obvious meaning. What is the technique taught with block destruction?
A lot of people call it block protection, and I just don't think that's a defensive term. Block destruction, we destroy blocks. That's kind of our mindset on defense here at Georgia, so that's why we focus on that.
Coach, I got kind of two questions for you. One, would you touch on Jalen Kimber and what you've seen in him? And then you mentioned some of those Zoom meetings. Can you tell us some of the pro teams that you spoke with about defensive schemes?
What are there, 32 teams in the NFL?
Yeah.
We're probably about 32. I mean, no, I don't know. We talked to a lot of teams. There was when you think about it, when it was locked down, the amount of time, there was a lot of, I couldn't tell you one team. And the fact that I might speak to one, and Coach Sherman might speak to another group, Coach Warren and Coach Smart. So we spoke with several teams. I wouldn't pick one out specifically. Jalen's done a really good job.
You can tell us all of them if you want.
Yeah, sure, 32. There you go. But Jalen's done a really good job, from an agility standpoint. I think he's still got to build some bulk, get in the weight room and work hard, but he is conscientious. He's really pays attention to detail. In fact, he's also on that list of guys we talk about player improvement. He did something wrong early in camp. We identified it. Coach Warren worked on it in drills. And then the next day, he makes a phenomenal play by executing the proper technique. So excited to see what he does moving forward.